125cc motorcycles are not proper motorcycles. Alright, now I know that statement might sound a little bit controversial, but honestly, when you compare the likes of 125cc bikes to so-called proper motorcycles, ones that are 400, 500, 600, 1000cc, even just between this and a 300 and 400, which is considered kind of like the next step up from something like a 125, the riding experience is totally different. Seriously. That's why I don't think these bikes really make good analogs for what a real motorcycle riding experience is like. So today on the Weiss Kawasaki Ninja 125, as much as I love this motorcycle, I'm going to explain why you're probably not going to get the proper riding experience from one of these types of bikes. So let's jump on and let's go. I really do like 125cc bikes. Seriously. As much as I'm saying something quite negative about them today, for the most part, I think they can give you a really fun riding experience. But all that we're going to go over today is why the gap between these kinds of bikes, 300s, 400s, 500s, 600s, 1000s, right? Why the experience gap is so big between 125s and even something like a 300. Seriously, you get on something like this and then you get on a 300, the experience is crazy different. The amount of power that you can get from a 300 and a 400 compared to this is crazy. It's 4 times the power, guys. 4 times the power. If a 125 can produce 12 horsepower, 13 horsepower, an A2 bike like the Ninja 400 can produce 45 horsepower at the crank. That's crazy. 4 times more horsepower, and the torque is at least doubled on most of these bikes. Seriously, it's absolutely insane the amount of extra performance you're going to be getting from an A2 bike compared to a 125. And then when you look at 650s, 600s, 900s, 750s, 1000, when you look at all these bikes, the gap just widens even bigger. I'm telling you, the difference in weight, speed, power, maneuverability is totally different on a 125 to any other class of motorcycle. And I don't think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? This is why I've always kind of argued that 125cc is a bit too small to be an effective beginner bike. I know why. Here in the UK, it's dictated to us that 125s are the beginner motorcycle because they want everyone going slower. Simple as that. They want everyone going slower. Thing is though, these bikes, when you think about it, they're not that slow. Yes, they're slow compared to other motorcycles out there, granted, alright, bigger bikes of course, but they can still hit speeds where you're going to kill yourself. If you're not careful on one, you're going to kill yourself. So it's like, well, if you're prepared to give learner riders a motorcycle like this, and why don't you give them something that is actually more of a proper riding experience? Oh dear. Bloody hell. That's insane. Can't park there, mate. I think that's case in point right there. That car in that bush nearly toppled over. That's a Nissan Micra. One of the smallest cars you can get, one of the least powerful cars you can get. You can probably go faster on this than you can in one of those cars, and someone's buried it in shrubbery. Absolutely ridiculous. But the thing is, guys, when it comes to motorcycles, it's almost like if you're going from a 125 and you're going up to an A2 motorcycle, as a lot of riders probably would, it's almost like you're having to relearn how to ride a bike again, because it's so different. Seriously, even if you're going from, like I did, a 650 parallel twin to a 1400cc inline 4, the gap between those two bikes is absolutely huge in terms of performance, the way the bikes feel. Alright, it's significantly heavier, more difficult to maneuver, more difficult to ride. It's like you have to relearn how to ride them again. And as much as going from a 650 to a 1400 is a significant difference in terms of performance and everything else like that, I think the gap isn't actually quite as big as you'd get if you went from a 125 to a 650 parallel twin, like I did. I went from my Chinese 125 piece of rubbish to a Kawasaki. It was an ER6, but basically the Ninja 650, it's what it is today, is a Ninja 650, exactly the same motorcycle pretty much. That is a huge jump. We're going from 12 horsepower to 70 horsepower. We're going from 10 newton meters of torque all the way up to 60, 70 newton meters of torque. It is absolutely ridiculous. That's a huge jump. And honestly, when I first got on that bike, because I stayed on my 125 for 2 years whilst I was on my A2 license, I didn't decide to get an A2 bike at the time. I just stuck on my stayed on my 125 and then went on the big bikes afterwards. So I could get anything I wanted. It was, I'll tell you what, I was so nervous when I got on that bike for the first time. It felt so much bigger. It was so much heavier. It was so much harder to move around. It was just crazy, the difference between the 125 and the ER6. It was huge. And that bike isn't heavy. Alright? It's 190 kilograms wet or so, something like that. The 125s are closer to 150 kilograms wet. Doesn't look like a huge difference, but trust me, when you get on the bike for the first time, it's so different. It feels crazy different. To be fair, once you get to a point where once you've ridden big bikes, any other bike is not difficult to figure out. But when you're first getting on those bikes, it can be incredibly intimidating and incredibly difficult to figure out, seriously, especially if you're coming from a bike like a little 125. I really don't think that you learn all that much, or the things that you learn from 125, you can't really translate that to an A2 bike or something a bit bigger, because the power is just on another level. It's like just, honestly guys, I think any beginner rider that's gone from a 125 to an A2 bike to something bigger than that, maybe, or maybe if you've done your direct access course, so you did your 125 CBT and then you went on to do your full license straight after, seriously, you'll feel the difference. You'll get the difference straight away. And I bet that as soon as you got comfortable on that 125, you get on something that is significantly bigger, and you'll feel the same way as I'm describing right now. You know, how much of that riding kind of knowledge that you gained from riding that 125, how much do you think of that you could have applied to that new bike, the bigger bike? Yeah, of course the controls and everything are going to be the same pretty much, but the amount of bite that's on the clutch, the amount of torque that you're feeding on the throttle, the amount of extra throttle control you got to have, it is totally different. So even like braking, when you're braking on a 125, it doesn't feel like you're braking with something that's so much heavier. You know, it doesn't feel the same. If you're braking on a motorcycle that is significantly heavier, you are going to feel it under the brake pressure, under the brake force as the bike slows down. Even though you're going to have more powerful brakes, because obviously it's a bigger, heavier bike, it's faster, and it needs more powerful brakes than a 125, you're still going to feel the weight difference. Yeah. Honestly, man, just be careful, alright? If you're in the UK, you're riding a motorcycle like this, you plan to go to A2, or maybe you're over 25 years old, you plan to do your direct access, and you get on something much bigger than a 125. Just be careful. Take it real slow. Take it really easy, really slow, and you'll be alright. But don't get on it and think, oh, I'm going to be able to blast this bike. Trust me. Even if it's just for a few hours. You know, after a few hours, when you've got comfy on the bike and you've started to understand the throttle feel and the clutch feel and the brake feel, the weight, the maneuverability of the bike, once you've got the hang of that, then you'll be okay and you can really start enjoying the bike. But those first couple of hours, they're going to be really scary. But yeah, guys, I honestly think that something like an A2 motorcycle, so 300, 400, or even a modern day 500cc, I think they are more suitable for beginners because they really do give absolute beginners a real good idea of what a motorcycle is going to be like to ride an actual motorcycle, how heavy it's going to be, the throttle feel, the clutch feel. Because imagine, you know, if you pin back the throttle on a 125, you're not going to be going very fast anywhere. But if you did that on something like a 500 or a 400, or God forbid, anything bigger than that, yeah, you're going to be in one of those bushes like that Nissan Micra. Seriously, you're not going to have a fun time. So as much as I think 125s can be useful to learn the basics, when it comes to riding on the roads and things like that, they're too small. They're too small, they're too light. They really don't give you an accurate representation of what a proper motorcycle is going to be like to ride. And that is the unfortunate truth, but I do understand why here in the UK that is the way it is. I get it, but you know, you get comfortable on a 125, you think you can do the same thing on a 125 that you can do on one of these other bikes. You really try pulling on that throttle, you try letting that clutch out too quickly, you're going to end up pulling wheelies off the line and flipping the bike over. Or yeah, you're going to end up on the side of the road just on your ass because you haven't understood that riding one of these bigger bikes is not like riding a 125. And I really don't think anyone can say that riding a 125 is like riding a 400, a 600, a 1000. It isn't. It really isn't. It's a totally different ball game, totally different kettle of fish, and you certainly cannot treat them the same way. A 125 and anything bigger, you can't treat them the same. You do have to treat them differently. But like with all motorcycles, you do have to treat them with respect, and you do have to be careful. But as always, guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below about these 125cc motorcycles. Do you think that they're too small like I do, or do you think maybe they are the perfect size, or maybe they need to be smaller than 125? Let me know down in the comment section. I have had people in the past leaving comments saying that a 125 is actually too big, but even these 125s here in the UK, they are restricted a little bit, so that is something to keep in mind. Alright, there is some performance left on the table for these 125cc bikes. I think they are restricted ever so slightly, a little bit like the Ninja 400, the CBR 500R from Honda. Here in the UK, to meet A2, they are restricted a little bit, so that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, what do you think is the best class of motorcycle for beginners? Do you think it should be a 250? Do you think it should be a 300? Something like that? Something that is a little bit more of an accurate representation? Or do you think it should be something smaller? Let me know down in the comments. But remember everyone, different countries have got different rules when it comes to beginner riding practices, and I think here in the UK it's very restrictive. In the United States, where you can basically ride any motorcycle, you do your MSF course, you ride any motorcycle, and you're done. I prefer leaving the choice up to the rider rather than it being dictated to. You know what I mean? I don't like being dictated to by law or something like that, telling me I have to do this or I have to do that. yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I prefer to have the choice and make the choice myself. So I would prefer a more American style of getting riders, beginner riders on bikes. I prefer that. But you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section as always. And please make sure to leave that like, hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed this ride out with me today and you want to see more videos on 125s or more beginner style content. Go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Thanks again, take care, ride safe. We'll catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.